Hello and welcome to the HR Like a Boss podcast. I'm your host, John Bernatovicz. I have embarked on a journey to get to know amazingly awesome HR and business professionals with the hope to find out what it takes to do HR like a boss. If you enjoy the show, please make sure that you subscribe and hit that 5-star rating. Welcome back to another episode of the HR Like a Boss podcast, and this is a special edition. We are showcasing the Ohio SHRM or Ohio HR Conference, however you want to call it, which is happening on September the 25th to September 27th. We're doing a special episode of the HR Like a Boss podcast to showcase some of the amazing people that you will see at the conference. And we figured we would start off this special edition of the HR Like a Boss podcast with the MC, the person that will be saying hello and goodbye and making sure everyone has fun and enjoys their time. John Petz, welcome to the HR Like a Boss podcast.
HR Like a Boss, this is it. Thanks, John. Appreciate you.
You got it. All right, John, I can't do the HR Like a Boss podcast without starting the very first question. How would you describe the purpose of human resources?
So my professional background, sales and marketing, I would say the purpose of HR most of the time was my friend, but they advocated for me to get to help me be who I was rightfully meant to be within that organization, fought for me when I needed fought for, but also helped and guide me along the path that was best for my financial future, for my career. So they're an advocate for me, but I also know they're an advocate for the company and the mission that they serve. So they're a friend on both sides.
Most times, I'm sure.
Most times. I said that little most times in there.
Yeah. No, I totally get that, which is pretty cool. It's, HR's got a really tough job to do. That's why going these kind of conferences at the Ohio SHRM at Kalahari 25th to the 27th of September is so important for that fellowship, that learning, and to let your hair down a little bit. I heard things get a little cray-cray after hours at the Ohio SHRM Conference. What happens at Kalahari stays at Kalahari. Is that the word? Is that the word on the street, John? Or should I not say that out loud?
That is, no, you're right. At Kalahari, what happens at Kalahari stays in Kalahari. But I don't think it's only Ohio SHRM. I mean, having been maybe like YouTube to many of these, SHRM and HR conferences, when you all get to let your hair down, it is a awesome experience. But Ohio is unique and different. They do it right. It's just a sensational program from the educational content, but yes, to the after hours and the relationship building and the networking. There's a lot that happens there.
All right, let's go a little deeper into it, John.
Yeah.
I know your history and experience with Ohio SHRM starts by doing an opening, closing keynote, and then eventually you ask some of the organizers, well, why don't you have an MC? And the next thing you know, you're spending 3-4 days of your life in the tail end of September in Sandusky, Ohio, not riding rides at Cedar Point, but stuck in a conference center. So you kind of got to be careful what you wish for. But we're super excited to have you. I know you do a great job. Your reputation precedes you. Give us your perspective of the do's and don'ts, the things you want to make sure that you participate in when you're at Ohio SHRM, for everyone out there that's kind of listening today and wondering, should I register? Should I go? What is it like?
Love the path of your question. One, I'm not spending time stuck in a conference room. I am investing time with people who want to grow and succeed. So it is that type of experience. I would share with people, again, of course, there's the education, there's the content, there's the best of the speaker. And I know you've got people coming on. You've got Mary Jo coming on this podcast. I know Jeannie Elliott's going to be on this podcast. So you have some of the talent. But I think number one, you need to find people like you. And no matter what industry or environment you come, what role you have in HR, this is a group of people that gets you and what you do. And I think so often we feel like we're in an island in those relationships. But when you come here, invest in that. And don't only go to the early birds and the sessions. You do want to go to the lunches and the dinners and the after hours to meet people. And the biggest thing I would say is do not leave those relationships at those doors when you walk out. Don't leave the relationships in those rooms, because those are your friends, your family, and they'll be the ones that you can call when you have that issue and you don't want to talk to someone in your own company. I'm like, hey, listen, I met that person at HR Ohio. Here we are. And that's important. It is all about the people.
I totally agree. One of the most unique things I hear from HR professionals all the time, John, that just kind of echoes right what you say, is there may be certain times within their organization they have something going on they can't tell anyone at work about their scenario, and maybe it's not an appropriate pillow talk conversation to have with a spouse or a friend, if that's so the case, and they need that friend, that phone a friend that you met at the Ohio SHRM Conference that says, hey, wait a second, I didn't realize that
that I've never dealt with this type of situation at work before. I remember Sally, my friend from Ohio SHRM, and they reach out. Next thing you know, hey, how you doing? How are the kids? How's the dogs? What's going on? Oh, I've been through that before. You might want to think about this and this. And the next thing you know, that tenuous situation, that anxiety that you feel as an HR pro being on that island, you feel like you're not alone. You're not the only one that's dealing with that. And that goes an incredibly long way. And you have to, as you said, John, you have to invest in it. Just can't happen at Ohio SHRM. That's maybe the start or the reconnection, but we got to continue to develop those relationships.
And even myself, who's been to this conference before and other SHRM conferences in other states, I genuinely, from going back, I have lifelong friends. I'm not even in HR, but the people I've met and who I've been able to call and network with and learn about, it has been absolutely fascinating, personally as well as professionally, for my career.
Awesome. All right. Well, again, September 25th to the 27th. You're going to hear this on this entire episode because this is all about promoting Ohio SHRM. We want you, the HR professional, the fans and the listeners of the HR Like a Boss podcast, to go to Kalahari. And you just don't have to be from Ohio. We'll take you from anywhere, any part of the United States or even beyond. Come to the Ohio HR Conference, Ohio SHRM. It's incredible. You'll get to see John Petz and some really incredible keynote speakers and other concurrent sessions. Wink, wink, nod, nod. I will be there doing a concurrent session on AI's impact on the business of HR. I think there's a actor from the Blues Clues who I heard is incredible as a presenter. A bunch of other folks that will be there. The vendor hall is fantastic. The food is incredible. The after hours is amazingly awesome. And speaking of amazingly awesome, John, I can't let you out of the HR Like a Boss podcast without asking you this final question I ask all guests. How would you describe it? You ready for it? Are you sure? All right, you've been waiting your whole life. You've been waiting your whole life to answer this one question. I know it. This moment, the time is now. How would you describe someone that does HR like a boss?
I think this person, this and the people that I've met around the country. So I source my friends, like, what do you do? What makes you a boss and impactful in what you do and contributing to organizational success, but also fosters professional growth and well-being of employees and thrive while doing it. But we know what you all do, man. We got talent acquisition, recruitment, onboarding, OSHA, DE&I. We got labor relations, employee relations, performance management, training and development, pay and benefit plans, a fun open enrollment time, employee engagement, HRIS. Man, you got to manage that. You got to implement it. You got to streamline the processes, continually evolving the process. You're managing staff reductions. You're mandating in-office time and being the cop of who watches it. You send them home. Now you got to make them come back. Many of you, you're picking up on all the quiet quitters, the digital nomads who do hush trips, who go on a trip, don't tell their managers about their PTO and work remotely. You got to deal with that. And of course, the strategic planning. And the goal is really to make this a better place and call home those who serve that common purpose with a passion, that common mission. And as an outsider, here's what I've seen. You all wanted that seat at the table before COVID, and now you have it. And you're going to be a boss. And the question is, what are you going to do with it? How are you going to HR like a boss with that seat? Your turn to make it happen.
Jeez, you were waiting for that moment, I can tell. And you didn't have any notes. I know you didn't have any notes. That's off the top of your head.
No notes.
Hanging around. You've been hanging around HR for so long. And I'll tell you what, John, as you were rattling off all those things, that's what made me write this book, because the job of human resources is really, really difficult because it's so multifaceted. It has so many different dynamics. I compare it only to a CEO's job of having that many customers, but the opportunity to command that seat at the table, to drive business results for your organization and to bring meaning to your employees' lives through their work and become a dream maker, not a policy holder or a principal's office. That's why I wrote HR Like a Boss. That's why I do this podcast. That's why hopefully you'll see me at the Ohio SHRM Conference along with John Petz. I'm going to party with John Petz at some point. We're going to break bread and have
rock.
Yes. John, thank you so much for being on the show. What a delight.
Look forward to it.
Welcome back, HR Like a Boss podcast fans. We are recording and continuing our second portion of our very special episode of the HR Like a Boss podcast, where we're showcasing the Ohio SHRM Conference, which is at Kalahari, September 25th to the 27th. And I am so excited to have Mary Jo Swearingen on the show. She is an emerging professional. She's from Tennessee. Go Vols. Woot woot.
Go Vols.
I couldn't say that if you were from Michigan, just so you know. I just want to make sure you understand that being from Tennessee and Alabama, you couldn't do that, right?
Yeah, exactly. I do have a brother who went to Michigan State, so I'm very, very familiar with all the Big Ten mess. So thank you for clarifying, but I understood.
I think we can generally tolerate Michigan State. I think we
Mm-hmm.
can, but anyway, that other school up north, Maize and Blue, not so much.
Whatever.
Anyway, no one really cares about that. Well, maybe a bunch of people do. But Mary Jo is on the show because she's one of the amazing keynote speakers they're going to have at the Ohio SHRM Conference. I told you it was September 25th to 27th. This episode that we're launching today is all about giving you the insights into why you should come to Ohio SHRM. We've had John Petz on earlier. We're going to end this special podcast with Gina Elliott, who is the chair of the Ohio SHRM Conference. Make sure you give her a high five and a hug for all she's doing. I already give you that to do when we're in the recording here just in a few minutes. But Mary Jo, say hello to the HR Like a Boss podcast community.
Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to be here and so excited to meet you guys in Ohio in September. John's already been giving me the rundown of everything I need to go and do and appreciate. So I'm very excited to see everybody.
I tried to convince Mary Jo to go to Cedar Point, but she heard that Ohio SHRM is so much fun. She just does not want to leave Kalahari, which is part of the problem there. It's either you sleep, you eat ice cream, or you drink, maybe the combination of the three all at the same time. Wouldn't that be a fascinating story for Ohio SHRM? That being said, Mary Jo, I ask all guests, even on this special episode, the same first question. I'm going to do the same for you, not going to treat you any differently. How would you describe the purpose of human resources?
Yeah, this is actually, John, one of my favorite questions. So I'm glad we get to start off with it. I mean, I am no different than anybody else in that I kind of just ended up in HR, but have a little bit of a fun twist to it. When I was going to college, I just decided to Google what my personality type was supposed to major in, and it said HR, and I never really looked back. But as I got into my business degree and really got into HR in general, I learned how vital people are to an organization, no matter what the objectives are of your company or your organization. Your people are the most important thing, no matter what. Your people are your business. And so for me, being in HR and being able to focus on your human capital and how to optimize what they're doing, how to leverage their talents, how to encourage them and support them and drive a good company culture are all things that just make me excited at the end of the day. And I think it's what makes HR so important to businesses in general, because at the end of the day, you want your people to be happy so that they help produce good work.
So cool. Usually a Google search turns into what job should I get? How do I apply? But you Googled my personality type and what job should you align to or career? What is your personality type? What's the description of that? Is that
Yeah. So I feel like I've taken them all, because if you've been in HR for any sort of time, right, you've taken every personality test out there. But at the time I was using the Myers-Briggs. So I'm an ENFJ. And I think the kind of twist on that is everybody needs fulfillment and joy, which is why it says you're most aligned with an HR career. And so I just didn't know what I wanted to do. I mean, I'll get into all the nitty gritty details as to what my life looked like and, where I was. It was only 8 years ago whenever I was going to college. And so what was going on in my mind, everything I was dealing with. And so I definitely needed some assistance. And so I think if I would have grown up in the ChatGPT generation, then I probably would have been using that. But Google is definitely my source of truth, and it worked out for me.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing. Well, I know you just said you've been in the professional world for 8 years. I know you're coming to Ohio SHRM again for those listening, and you're contemplating, should I go to that conference? When is it, John? I don't remember what you said, September 25th to the 27th at Kalahari in Sandusky, Ohio. But one of the showcases, the highlights, one of the really cool focal points for Ohio SHRM this year is going to be on emerging professionals, not just those that are in that stage of their life, trying to get into HR, trying to amplify their career. But we're also going to be working with, okay, let's say you're a Gen Xer like me, or you're a baby boomer, and you're trying to figure out, how do I best collaborate with younger emerging professionals in my professional career? And Mary Jo is coming to speak just on that topic. She's a subject matter expert in this area. She walks that walk. She talks that talk. Mary Jo, tell us a little bit about what your talk's going to be about and what you're hoping people will get from it.
Yeah, well, you touched on some of it. I think a little bit is going to be generational differences. So I've been in the workspace for like 4 years, I believe. I was a 2020 grad, so I was in college before that. So I'm very much in this new emerging professional wave, and I think with that we are also bringing in a new generation to the workforce. And so, what are the nuances of that? What do they need in order to be successful? But then also, how do you look at the differences between this generation and previous generations, and how do you leverage that to make your business better? I started my career in state government and then have moved into the private sector, and I work for a PEO. And in both areas, I've really had company mission and culture driven around making other organizations better, making them operate, in a different way, in a better way, elevating current processes, elevating current leadership, and doing what you need to do in order to support them. And so it's been really fun for me, I call it my non-paying job, working with SHRM and working with other organizations and talking about young professionals and flipping it on its head is how do you look at what they need? How do you categorize what they need in an area in a way that you understand? Every business, it's really about breaking down all of these, differences between people and making it everyone speak the same language. And so really looking to see what the first 10 years of someone's career can look like. How do you as an organization optimize that, not only for their experience, but for your benefit, because you can help them help you type thing. But then also really getting into what the differences are and why they are. Because I think what people really want at the end of the day is just to really connect at the human level and to know, why are you doing what you're doing? Why am I doing what I'm doing? And how do we connect on that? Because I don't think it's uncommon. Sometimes people are in the phase where they just need to be working. It's a job versus some people are trying to build a career, and that's okay. It's just about understanding those. And so I'll dig into all of those details. I'm so excited to talk about it. But I think the young and the emerging professional, that conversation is getting bigger and bigger, and I'm really excited to be a part of it.
Super proud to say at our firm, Willery, we're very intentional about having internship programs, and we do that because of the energy level that those young professionals bring to our organization, the ideas and perspective that they have, and then there's this opportunity for collaboration in different walks of life, different stages of career, and I think mentor and menteeship is a huge part of development for HR and business leaders. And I cannot wait to see your session, Mary Jo. I'm excited. I wish it was September 25th right now. I will not fast forward the tape too much on that because there's a lot to do between now and then. Okay, Mary Jo, this is the HR Like a Boss podcast that you're on, just making sure you're clear on that. I wrote a book called HR Like a Boss. I do keynote speaking around the country on how to do amazingly awesome HR. And I end all guests on the HR Like a Boss podcast, even this special episode for the Ohio SHRM Conference, September 25th to the 27th at Kalahari in Sandusky, Ohio. You'll get to see Mary Jo, and there'll be up to 30 SHRM recertification credits available. There'll be tons of expo hall participants and vendors there to support you. Great food, great fun, all kinds of a chance to get away a little bit, recharge your battery. Is that enough selling? I think it is. Get back to the question, John. Mary Jo, tell me, how would you describe someone that does HR like a boss?
Yeah, I think in my area of HR, I'm primarily focused on talent management and some of these other things. So for me, HR like a boss is somebody who has balanced empathy. They understand how to, what somebody's going through and how to be there for them and how to be, the best support system possible, while also understanding the objectives of their business and what they need to do in order to, promote business success and promote the future of the organization, which is what's healthy for all. So for me, HR like a boss is somebody who really knows how to care and be kind to somebody while also adhering to an overall mission, values, and, organizational structure.
If you want to learn about how to collaborate with young emerging professionals, how to have balanced empathy, and how to do HR like a boss, make sure that you stop by Mary Jo's session at Ohio SHRM. September 25th to the 27th is when the conference is at Kalahari. I've said it now 5 times. Hopefully you remember it. We get 1, 2, or 3 attendees that show up. Mary Jo, great job. Thank you for being on the show.
Yes, thank you.
In Sandusky, Ohio, I am delighted to be joined by the incredible, the stellar, and the so-called chair of the Ohio HR Conference. I'm going to ask her, is it Ohio HR Conference or Ohio SHRM? Because everybody calls it Ohio SHRM, but I think it's called Ohio HR Conference. That being said, Gina Elliott, welcome to the HR Like a Boss podcast.
Yes, thank you for having me. You do me the great honor of having me on the podcast. So really excited to connect with you and talk about HR like a boss and how you can do that at Ohio SHRM's conference.
Okay, so it
Which
is Ohio
I
SHRM
just did
or is
it.
it Ohio HR Conference? Which one
I
is
don't
it?
know. I've heard OHRC. I've heard Ohio SHRM. I think it's just however you want to think of it. We're the community of HR professionals all across Ohio, and we're here to support everyone within the profession.
That sounds perfect. Who cares what we call it? One or the other. I think it's been branded Ohio SHRM forever and called Ohio HR Conference. Technically,
I was going to say, it wouldn't be HR if we didn't have like 9 acronyms that all mean the same thing. So,
swirl some confusion of
yeah, keep
names
everyone
and
on their toes.
yes. All right. Well, speaking of keeping people on their toes, Gina, I ask all guests that are so thankful to be on my podcast. The very first question is, how would you describe the purpose of human resources?
That's a great question. I think that I would put it as you're a conduit. And I mean that in the sense of you may have different teams that you support, you may have different industries or types of workers, but the purpose of the HR professional is really to go between and explain things to anyone within their group. So, I support finance and accounting in one of my roles, and I have to explain things way different to them because they're very analytical, they're very literal, and it's less of hey, we're just going to go with the flow and this is how this policy feels, and they're like, okay, but what are these 9 scenarios? So being the conduit to explain benefits to anyone, whether it's that fresh out of college emerging professionals, the established professional who's maybe going through a life event, getting married, having kids, spouses changing, or the person getting ready for retirement. Your job as the HR professional is to be the conduit between the business and the associates across all spaces within the HR field.
I love it. Conduit between all things, making sure we connect all those dots. And I know one of the ways that you can do that very effectively is through fellowship and coordination and collaboration and community with your other HR professionals. And I know, Gina, I did my best to give you the praise and thank you for your service of being the chair for the Ohio HR Conference coming up again September 25th to the 27th at Kalahari. If you do not have your tickets, like, hey, hello, now's the time to sign up. We'll make sure to make it easy for you through the show notes. But Gina, you've been to the conference a number of times. Maybe there's a listener out here right now that's on the fence saying, do I have the time? Should I go? Let's give them a 2-minute sales pitch. It's okay. It's a commercial. It's fine. This is what we do here on the podcast when we're showcasing Ohio SHRM. Why should someone come to the Ohio HR Conference?
That's a great question. And I'm sure our business leaders ask us that when we're like, hey, can I take 2.5 days and some money up to Kalahari? So ultimately there's the networking, right? You get to recharge your HR batteries, be around like-minded folks who go through the same struggles. Last year Jason brought up, you can't go to accounting and tell them, man, this investigation I'm working on, it's killing me. So it's people who walk in your shoes, right? You can network, you can, maybe find some mentor, someone to be a mentee. So there's a great opportunity from the community aspect. There's also the education. So we're going to be looking to submit for over 30 credit hours for this year's conference. And with that, we have the on-demand where attendees can view all of the sessions. So if there's a keynote that was especially moving and you want to play it again, or you had conflicts and, out of the 5 sessions running concurrently, you can only attend 2 of those. The other 3 are going to be waiting for you post-show that you can watch at your leisure. So unlimited potential in the credits from a recertification perspective. I'm also doing something really unique this year, and we're looking to really have a focus on the emerging professionals. I went, just out of college, and I didn't fit in at the student table because I wasn't actively a student. And I felt intimidated going up to a table of established professionals. And I just kind of felt like I'm against the tide, and, I need to find my community, my group. And I'm really trying to make an opportunity for the people who are a couple years into their career, still getting a feel, those emerging generalists, those, coordinators, everyone like that. There's a place for you at Ohio SHRM. There's a place for you within, the community that we have. You can learn from people who have more experience than you, whether it's intentionally and you're seeking them out, or you're learning from these amazing speakers that we've brought in with a range of topics that are really burning in the business industry as well as the HR industry.
I think that's the perfect segue for AI's impact on the business of HR, because that's one of the concurrent sessions that I know really well, because Gina was kind enough to ask me to come present on that. And that'll be twice. We'll have an early bird for those of you like having presentations or being part of events at 7 a.m. That'll be really cool. And I'm thankful that it'll be recorded as well, so that those...
I won't see you at 7, John, but I'll catch you at the second one.
I'm pretty sure a lot of people won't, because you didn't mention what I've heard. The reputation of Ohio SHRM is the after hours event and people letting their hair down a little bit. But you talked about collaboration, networking, chance to learn and grow, especially for emerging professionals. I know that those that are even a little longer in their career, they get some really great things out of it. I think the Expo Hall is one of the best that I've been to of any SHRM conference. And I'm not just saying that because I'm on with Gina right now. There's great collaboration. People engage with you. They actually have conversations. The vendors are there to support you. They're obviously paying to be there. So let's make sure that we keep a close eye out for ways that they may be able to help us out in our business. And it's just such a great time. Again, September 25th to the 27th, Kalahari, the Ohio HR Conference, Sandusky, Ohio. Make sure that you're there, and there'll be a plethora of keynotes, tons of concurrent sessions, chance for you to network, vendors available there to support you, and then some fun before, during, and after all the great sessions. Okay, so Gina, this is the HR Like a Boss podcast that you're on. If you needed to be reminded, I am the host and the author of HR Like a Boss, which was the SHRM's first ever published book to reach #1 new release on Amazon. Super proud of that and excited. And you are currently one of the great guests on my show, and I end all of my episodes with one final question. How would you describe someone that does HR like a boss?
I've been trying to think through this one, and I don't want to take any pages out of your book, so I won't refer to the little note I have next to me from the book. But I think HR like a boss, you're being authentic, you're driving, again, the business needs, you're driving the associates' needs. And again, I think it comes back to being that conduit, right? You take all perspectives into account when implementing new policies, implementing new technology. If it's taking an AI initiative to your team and being able to explain that this is meant to improve efficiencies or reduce redundant work. It's not to, get rid of anyone's job or, make anyone obsolete. So it's being able to tell the story, support the business, support your associates. And, at the end of the day, if you can, cross that off as, the main goal, I think that's what HR like a boss would be, is that authentic conduit.
That's awesome. Gina, again, thank you for your service. I know that being the chair of Ohio HR Conference is it a full-time job or close to it, or maybe feels like it? Don't answer that question.
It feels like it, yeah.
You're allowed. I teed you up for that one. It is a lot. If you see Gina between the recording of this show and the time that she ends her time at Ohio HR Conference, give her a hug, give her a high five, give her a thank you, because of people like her. We have these amazing conferences to go to. Again, September 25th to the 27th, Ohio HR Conference, aka Ohio SHRM. It's going to be in Sandusky, Ohio at Kalahari. Almost 30 hours of SHRM recertification credits, tons of great speakers, sponsors, networking, fun, food, great place to sleep and hang out at the Kalahari Resort. I think that's enough, Gina. I think people are convinced. Everyone that's listening has already signed up. I can see them coming in droves. We will see you in Kalahari, and thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, John. Appreciate you as both a speaker and part of our exhibitors. We can't do it without either of those two main components, as well as the attendees. So I hope to, see as many people as I can. And like you said, stop by, give me a high five. We'll have a drink. We'll enjoy taking care of business for 2024.
Well, if everybody gets Gina a drink that's at Ohio SHRM, I'm not sure she's going to need a ride home. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah.
I want to say she will definitely not be at my session at 7 a.m. if everybody gets her a drink that wishes her well. That's a charge of anyone that's listening. All right, Gina, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for checking out the HR Like a Boss podcast. If it resonates with you, please leave a rating and review, or better yet, subscribe and share with a friend. Until next time, let's continue to aspire to do amazingly awesome HR.